Advisory. Some episodes of the 1836 podcast are not intended for all audiences due to details that might be considered disturbing. Listener and viewer discretion is advised.
In this episode of the 1836 podcast, we share the story of the last recognized train robbery in Arkansas. On the cold, rainy night of November 3, 1893, the small town of Olyphant, Arkansas, south of Newport, became the stage for a tragedy that would mark the last recognized train robbery in the state's history. Train number 51, a 7-car locomotive of the St. Louis, Iron Mountain, and Southern Railway, had departed Poplar Bluff, Missouri, at noon carrying 300 passengers, many of whom were wealthy tourists returning from the World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago. The train, bound for Little Rock, pulled onto a side track in Olyphant around 10 o'clock in the evening to allow the faster Cannonball Express to pass. It was a routine stop, but one that 4 bandits, Tom Brady, Jim Wyrick, Albert Mansker, and George Paget, had meticulously planned to exploit. The bandits, who had met while peddling whiskey in Indian Territory, had initially set their sights on the Cannonball Express, lured by rumors of cash and gold from the Federal Reserve Bank. However, George Paget, after scouting train number 51, learned it would stop in Olyphant to drop off mail and let another train pass. He also heard that a bunch of rich folks from Chicago were aboard, making number 51 an irresistible target. For days, the group had ridden their horses along the tracks, studying the route and encouraging their nerves with heavy drinking. On the night of the robbery, they were ready. As number 51 idled on the sidetrack, the bandits struck. Gunshots pierced the night, shattering the calm. The baggage attendant, alarmed, rushed to warn the train's conductor, William P. McNally, a beloved Irish-born figure who had worked the Poplar Bluff to Little Rock route since the early 1880s. Known for his outgoing personality, McNally was just weeks away from retirement. Unfazed by the danger, he sprang into action, moving through the passenger cars and urging the 300 travelers to hide their valuables. Borrowing a gun from a passenger named Charles Lamb, McNally advanced to the front of the train to confront the robbers. The bandits, meanwhile, methodically worked their way through the cars, robbing passengers of jewelry, cash, and other valuables worth a total of $6,000. When they reached the front, a fatal confrontation erupted. McNally fired at the intruders, but one of the bandits, armed with a rifle, returned fire, striking him. The holdup lasted 20 harrowing minutes before the robbers fled into the night. The train, now a scene of chaos and grief, limped on to Little Rock, but McNally succumbed to his wounds before it arrived. The murder of William P. McNally, a well-known and cherished figure in Arkansas's railroad community, ignited a firestorm of outrage. Thousands attended his funeral, and the state was gripped by a fervor to bring the culprits to justice. Sheriffs from 10 counties assembled posses, spurred by a $300 reward from the St. Louis, Iron Mountain, and Southern Railway, as well as additional rewards promised by the Pacific Express Company and Governor William Fishback. The manhunt became a media sensation, with the Arkansas Gazette dedicating entire front pages to the story. Reports of near captures, gunfights, and arrests of suspicious characters flooded the news as posses scoured the hills for the elusive gang. By December 1893, the net tightened. The 4 suspects, Tom Brady, Jim Wyrick, Albert Mansker, and George Paget, were apprehended remarkably close to the crime scene, having neither fled the state nor adopted aliases. Their trial in January 1894 revealed the details of their ill-fated plan, largely through the testimony of Paget, who turned state's witness to avoid the gallows. He described how the group, led by himself and Brady, had hatched the scheme in Indian Territory, with only Mansker having prior experience in train robbing. Their decision to target number 51 was a last-minute pivot driven by the promise of wealthy passengers and the train's predictable stop in Olyphant. The trial was swift and decisive. Brady, Wyrick, and Mansker were convicted of first-degree murder for McNally's death and sentenced to hang. On April 6, 1894, a large crowd gathered outside the Newport jail to witness the executions. The three men faced their fate, their deaths closing a grim chapter in Arkansas's history. Paget, spared by his cooperation, faded into obscurity. The Olyphant train robbery of 1893, with its blend of daring, tragedy, and retribution, captured the imagination of a state still tethered to the wilder days of the 19th century. It stood as a stark reminder of the risks faced by travelers on steam locomotives, and the swift justice meted out to those who preyed on them. As the last recognized train robbery in Arkansas, it left an indelible mark on the lore of the region, a tale of a bygone era when the clatter of rails was punctuated by the sound of gunfire.